Hello, I'm Holly Schroeder, President and CEO of the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation. Today's segment is a continuation of the panel discussion that was filmed live at the Economic Outlook that was held in September 2021 at the Santa Clarita Performing Arts Center. It features a panel discussion from prominent SCV business leaders, including Jan Swartz of Princess Cruises, Lance Williams of Williams Homes, Christian Harris from Sunkist Growers, and it was moderated by Todd Stevens of Black Knight Energy. The segment today is featuring a discussion about COVID-19, navigating the ever-changing guidelines, and the vaccine mandates. Please enjoy this segment as well as the other segments that you can find at the SCV Means Business podcast.
I think the one thing that's interesting, and Lance, hear from you how you're handling this, is because everyone's operating in multiple states and countries in some cases, is how do you deal with the vaccine mandates, the provide proof of vaccination, and we have a lot of by God we're Americans, you can't do this, and so you have the whole gamut of employees who might feel different ways about this, and how do you respond to that? And then how do you respond from a corporation standpoint? Is it the lowest common denominator across the board? Because if they're in Idaho, it's a lot different than it is here in LA County. If you're in Florida, it's a lot different than it is here in Santa Clarita. So, I mean, how do you handle that, Lance, and how you respond to that? Because you could really piss some people off, because people have some militant views on you better be vaccinated tomorrow, or it's my body, I'm gonna do what I want.
And we're still seeing some of that. So the first thing we had to do when we landed at a new airport, we got to get out of the plane and figure out what the rules are where we just landed, because they were so different across the country. Everywhere we went, New York City just emptied out, and people were wearing masks outdoors. So it was that was the farthest end of what it looked like. I mean, and I've been in a city where, if you walk a block, you've been exposed to 1,000 people easy, because there's so much density in New York City, and it was empty. I mean, you could ride a skateboard through Times Square and there was nobody there. So that was extraordinary to see that. And then, you go to Montana and everybody's already outdoors and there's 2 people in the hospital. There's like nobody in the hospital. The people were getting COVID, but they just, for some reason, they weren't getting sick. Maybe the trees made them feel better. I don't know what was going on.
But how do you handle that as a company? As Williams Homes, how do you handle that?
Yeah, it was like county by county, we were tracking the numbers and listening to and following it, because we're in all these variety of counties all over the place. And so it was county by county, watching the numbers, watching the mandates, and just changing. And HR was very busy, for sure. And then for us, as a family and as the chairman and CEO of the company, it was, now the vaccines are available. So we wouldn't consider mandating it, unless we were required by some other larger jurisdiction. But our family went and got vaccinated, and we shared that story with our employees. But there are some of our employees who got vaccinated and others who aren't getting vaccinated still. Many of whom already got COVID during Christmas. We had our spike in Christmas around between Santa Clarita had a great spike, not a great spike, just a large spike between Thanksgiving and I don't know, what was it? End of February, we just had this huge spike here. And we had our own super spreader event, but we got through it, and a lot of folks got it. But yeah, so it's difficult. We talk about it right now. Should we encourage people to go get the vaccine at their employees? And I think just by telling our story, my entire family, we're 15 years old and up, our local family here, so we all got vaccinated, and we just share the story. But yeah, we're mandating it? No, not yet.
So Jan, how are you? You guys are, multiple countries, let alone, around the country, around the United States. I mean, I talked recently last Monday to a soldier from Fort Irwin who told me they're just lining people up and mandating the vaccine for people in the Army. But how do you handle that, as a private enterprise and what you do across so many different states and so many different countries?
So it differs, but for the ships versus for the shore, right? So for the ships, we are under the regulation of the US CDC in terms of our ability to return to service. And so we work in conjunction with them, and their requirements for a vaccinated crews were the ones that we thought were most guest centric, meaning being able to have a great guest experience once folks were on board. And so the vaccinated cruise concept says basically the guests need to be vaccinated and our crew needed to be vaccinated. In that case, we were very fortunate that we were able to work with various government entities here in the US to access vaccines for our shipboard teammates. And they understood that if they took the assignment, that a vaccine would be a part of that. And many of them are incredibly grateful to our corporation for helping arrange that, because in the countries in which they live, it may be quite a long time before they can even have access to a vaccine. So in order for us to restart our business, those were the parameters under which we had to work with the US CDC. And then also we have ships sailing from the UK with British authorities. Shoreside, as it relates to our offices within the US, we have not done any vaccination mandate. So we encourage our teammates to be vaccinated because we have a chief medical officer, we have an entire public health and medical team who are in touch with the top experts around the world, and they see the statistical benefits of getting vaccinations in terms of the dramatic reduction in hospitalizations and potential fatal outcomes. And so while we have shared our personal stories getting vaccinated and encourage the teams, we don't require it of our shoreside employees. And certainly with everybody still working remotely, should they come to the office, they just have to be tested and wearing a mask. So we work around that because as you guys experience in the US and elsewhere in the world, there's different opinions and people have about whether they personally want to get the vaccine. So we really try to provide information that helps inform those decisions.
So yesterday I was with a good friend of mine who's on the board at Tyson, and listening to the food supply issues and COVID, it made me think immediately you that we're talking today, because he was just telling me the stories and how the government was, giving them guidance and help on that. How is it when you're dealing with a food supply like you are, Christian, and what you guys have had to do, what you do now? Do you mandate vaccines, or does the CDC or the government tell you because you're dealing with the food supply? And how do you deal with it in the administrative offices versus out in the field?
So we've had to stay really agile. We set up meetings from the beginning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, with all the key leaders in human resources. And it feels like every time we get anywhere near making a decision on how we're going to move forward, the rules change again. And so we do have offices in Japan and Korea as well. So we do have people kind of dotted outside of here, and we have people obviously all over the US. So we're trying to always follow whatever the guidelines are. We, like everyone else on this panel, have encouraged people. I would tell you what we've really tried to do as much as anything is get availability. Obviously, agricultural workers were eligible very early within the US. And so we tried to help with availability, tried to encourage and share good stories. I want to give a shout out. If anyone here is from Henry Mayo, you guys were phenomenal for our head office. You helped us out. And so that was a huge resource for us here in the Valley. And so I think, like a lot of people on the panel here, we're going to have to follow whatever guidelines we have, whatever those guidelines are. They're often incredibly confusing because one agency versus another have a different opinion about what we're supposed to be doing. Ultimately, we do a reasonable amount of business with the USDA. We supply government organizations such as the military. So we're likely to fall under whatever the most stringent guidelines are at some point, and we'll be unable to do anything else if we want to continue doing that business. So I think in the end, our decisions will be made for us, but we're trying to stay as flexible as we can until that time happens.
And I guess listening across the board, you really think you probably never have taxed your HR departments more than ever during COVID, it seems like, because there's, like you said, the changing goalposts, so many things. Has that really highlighted the importance to have a kind of a key CHRO and that staff being appropriate for you?
Yeah, we were very lucky. We actually were going through a little bit of a reshuffle of our HR team just prior to all this stuff kicking off.
And so we have a really strong human resources team, and it was incredibly important to have that leadership. And as I was telling you earlier, actually, one of our directors in HR is ex-military, and she's incredibly well organized, which was not lost on us. Her ability to be able to stay completely calm as things got crazy, and we had spikes and things like that, I think was a true attribute to us. So yeah, I think we've learned on that team more than ever before, and we're going forward as well, because not only do we need their leadership in terms of what decisions we make, but now we're getting back into hiring, as we talked about way earlier, and now they're having to, we're so busy, particularly in the fresh food business, looking directly in front of ourselves, that these leaders in these shared services groups, whether it's our legal team, our HR team, need to look a little further ahead of what's coming. And you and I were just having a conversation about, okay, so we want to hire more people here. What clever ideas can we come up with on housing, for example, if we want people to come here? And that's the kind of work our human resources team is doing as well, beyond just COVID itself.
Hi, I'm Holly Schroeder, President and CEO of the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation. You've been watching a segment recorded live at the 2021 Economic Outlook Conference. Don't forget to check out the other segments available on our YouTube channel to hear the rest of their conversations about supply chain, talent, culture, recruiting, and leadership in times of crisis and change. To learn more about the Santa Clarita Valley Economic Development Corporation, visit scvedc.org.